Welcome to Stay Visionary Podcast. I'm Ed Moran. Today we're joined by Tom Blair, CEO and founder of iClerk, the applied AI company turning messy manual workflows into role-aware autonomous agents that deliver real return on investment across finance, VC, healthcare, and more. Let's dig into how agents capture enterprise knowledge and actually move the needle. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, Ed. Thanks for having me.
Hey, take us back to the beginning. What inspired you to launch iClerk? Because it's very interesting to me. And what problem were you determined to solve bringing that?
When you read that intro, I thought, oh, that's horrible. That doesn't explain anything. And so at a fundamental basis, what iClerk does is it provides trustful agents. Okay, so what does that mean? And to explain that, let me take you back into where iClerk came from, because it really came from a set of ideas in the late 20-teens. I have a long background in AI. I did semantic image recognition using neural nets in the 80s, and I built distributed databases in the 90s, and build agentic systems in the early 2000s, and ran a weather company, an AI-based weather company in the 20-teens. And all of those different software components influenced what we built in the iClerk platform today. So strangely enough, the original idea was how to price a cow. And so cows are unexpectedly complex commodity items, right? You have feeder cattle and grain and live cattle and ethanol and fuel. It's actually, to correctly price that commodity of a cow, it's the intersection of 5 different intersecting commodity markets. And so humans suck at that. In fact, Cattle Crush is the intersection of 3 of those, and they suck at that. It's one of the most volatile 100-year intersecting commodity charts, if you look at it. And so it was my third company at the time, and so it was really an intellectual exercise. But through we patented this idea of how do you build an agentic system that could independently go out and learn over time about that, all the components that would allow you to price grain, for instance, right? There's weather involved, and there's ethanol companies that ingest grain as part of their process, and there's the agriculture industry and the consumption, both cattle and human consumption of it, and all these complexities that you have to monitor over time. And then the agents have to interact with each other to produce this derivative price in this case. So the company has evolved. Mainly the data that we point at has evolved to the point where now we focus agents on private data, any place where it needs to be trustful, accurate, traceable, and that really is the class of professionals, right? It's finance and engineering and education and medical and legal, right? And they all have these common characteristics. And so if you look at the AI ecosystem at the chip level, right? And then you have data centers, and then you have all the foundation models. There's more than 4,000 foundation models right now. We'll continue to see a lot more of these reasoning tools, because each country in the world will have them to preserve their language and their culture and their norms and their bylaws. And each vertical market will continue. Legal will have a specialized one. In medical, you're already seeing it in medical, a lot of adoption and verticalization. Radiological GPTs, finance, you see it. And so you see the verticalization. You also see large and small ones for different distributed applications. So given a proliferation of foundation models, you need to abstract out. You can't centralize everything all your private data into one of these models, right? Because we've already established there's many of them, depending on where you are in the world or what you're doing. And so you really need to abstract out the context, your facts, and the ability to reason across multiple models. And that's what agents give you. So it's really a distributed technology versus a centralized technology. And so that's an even longer-winded version.
Can you explain the difference with the centralized?
Yeah, the agents act kind of like connective tissue with the human body, where you're taking all the inputs, right? Your vision and your touch and your smell and all the sensory field. And instead of routing it to our brain, it routes it to many different models, in this case, many different brains. Again, depending on what you're doing, right? If I'm doing imaging, I'll use a different model. If I'm doing math, I'll do a different model. If I use languages, I'll use one of many models, right? And so the key is to not centralize all your private information, all your personal information, all your proprietary information, all the critical stuff that constitutes a business, right? And so it allows you to keep that private. When I say distributed, is it doesn't centralize your data like an LLM. If you want to go to OpenAI or Gemini or Claude or any of those, to set context, you got to feed it all your data, right? And so these agents allow you to just point at your data. It can remain in an Excel spreadsheet. It can remain in a SAP ERP. It can remain in Slack, wherever or more likely on email within a workflow attached, right? And so you can eliminate it. What these agents give you is the movement of data. So now you can leave your data in place. I can point at it. I can know what that information value is of that data, and I can remember that in this agent. And so it gives you the ability to remember over time and manages context while leaving your data in place. So it becomes very private and fail-safe, and it's a next generation type of enterprise information system. It's not a SaaS system. It leaves your SaaS in place, leaves your data in place. It operates above it, right? And it allows you to move data across space and time. And so if you think about that like an accounts payable process, right? I might receive invoices from email and I need to check and see if it's a customer. And then I need to enter that into QuickBooks, and I might generate, there might be ancillary workflows there. So all of that data movement, by having an AI agent do that, you can increase your data quality and your data velocity. And humans suck at that work anyways. So you don't have to pay somebody to do a bad job at moving your data, right? It's not the product that you're trying to get out the door. It's a process. And so that's what agents mean today. These aren't really autonomous agents. They're not running amok in your organization. They're role-based to act just like human employees according to corporate policy or regulatory guidelines, right? So you can do statutory processes or accounting processes. It's not a co-pilot, right? Everyone's familiar with, having this, modified Clippy next to you, being able to answer questions and take your data, set your context, give an answer. These exist on a calendar, right? They can kick off processes at the right time and monitor it and get humans involved when necessary, right? Yeah. And so it's really a kind of a different animal when I say distributed versus centralized, right? Instead of the human going to the model to get an answer, the agent exists and is getting the information and keeping the human informed at a macro view, right? So,
all right. So, iClerks, your company culture, and how have you built your team? Speaking of humans, and how do you push through that? Because there's always a wrench where the human comes in.
For 5 years, we've been fully remote and distributed. We've got a community, most importantly, right? Doesn't really matter where you are, as long as we have a common set of goals. We work through, the organization is different. We work through partners for sales and marketing. So when you run a tier 4 type operating environment like this, that's providing orchestration and retrieval and model hosting and observability and all that scalability, and then you have these different partner applications or our own applications that run on top of it and address different vertical markets. And so in that type of environment, we run, like I said, partners that provide domain expertise and channels to market, right, per vertical market. So we're the subject matter experts in how to automate these business operations, but they might be the medical billing specialist or the education specialist or the private equity specialist. So we run no sales and marketing. We don't have R&D. We run forward deployed engineers that embed basically with these customers. And so it allows you to understand the operations of your customer at a really granular system of record type level. And so because these agents, you can have 5 or 10 for the price of one human, all of our customers see the benefit of this types of automation of rote types of processes, and they find many agents. And so we find it really valuable to have, we typically meet every week or biweekly or monthly with all of our customers, because these systems learn, they're dynamic, they evolve over time, right? It's not a SaaS system where you install it and train everyone and then that's what they use. This really ebbs and flows with changes in customers or changes in your business. And so our organization reflects that. It's more dynamic and distributed and multicultural and multi-vertical.
It works probably better with people integrated than just, like you said, a SaaS system where you have to get everybody trained on. Okay.
There really is a partnership between the professionals already doing that work. These are business process changes. Right? Every business is has the potential to re-optimize how they rethink how they do business. And the characteristics we've seen is direct impact on cost of goods sold, right? It reduces the cost of you delivering your product. And in professional services firms, we've seen triple and quadruple their margin. They'll go from 20 net to 80 net net margins. So it can have a profound effect on these organizations. Just, an agent, you can put it in a quarter that can change your margin structure. That's pretty profound.
Right? Absolutely. So how do you approach the innovation inside iClerk? What's the process for deciding what problems AI should tackle first?
Yeah, we listen a lot. It's been thousands of conversations. It really has. I have a diverse background. I worked in databases, which covered every sector in every country and every application, every country in the world. You see a lot of the same characteristics here that it affects every application. So that's been the difficulty, is to focus on, because everyone needs this, right? It's most days I have this conversation and so it's a matter of trying to kind of herd the cats into, what's the biggest herd that I can identify up front. And I'll give you 2 examples. We have 2 brands where a customer has come to us defining a problem. We've solved that problem to great success with them, and then taken that, created a brand, and then we can sell that to all the folks that look like them. And our Remediant brand is a good example of that. It does phase 2 environmental assessment reporting. It's a soil remediation product. It's used by civil engineering companies that do phase 2 reporting. That's a $2 billion North American a year market, meaning that there are, it's 1 out of every 5 commercial properties sold in the US require a phase 2 report, right? And so that is a cost of goods sold. The product is not the report. That's a statutory report. It either goes to the province or the state. It's, signed by engineers. And so in this case, we can automate something that normally took 12 hours down to 3 minutes. The engineer still reviews it and signs it. The effect on the company it was a 27-person company. It was the equivalent of adding 15 full-time engineers to that company. Right. And so nobody's getting fired because of this. Their profitability goes up. They can scale. They can take on business that they couldn't take on before. Another example is our Clear AP product. That's the brand, clearap.com. And it does exactly what I explained before, is it automates that grunt work of accounts payable, accounts receivable, your basic accounting features. Every place that everyone, 40% of the industry uses QuickBooks, right? And so how do you get the data in there cleanly? How do you get it from email? How do you check, all these processes rhyme, right? They're very, they're taking noisy data and they're structuring it and putting it in a GL and kicking off another number of processes. These agents were built for things like that, right? And so in a case like that, if you have some people have a rough time to find and retain people that can do a quality job on these processes. I think 40% of these processes are outsourced and offshored. And so all that should become in-house where you can control it. It remains private. You can do it for a fraction of the cost. Even if you're doing it offshore, these agents are cheaper, right? And so for some things, it just completely makes sense. And that's what we're seeing is, you have 1,000 conversations and then you start to identify a pattern, right? And that's what we've done is now we have partner brands that run on the iClerk agent operating system. And then we have our brands that run on the iClerk agent operating system, right? And so it's common denominators. It's an operating system, right? It is in the truest sense of the word.
So how are you getting these companies that struggle with adaption? How do you help them understand and trust automation in their workflows?
Yeah, they usually come into us. The early adopters are people that can't find people to do the work or having a rough time retaining people to do the work, or they're doing a horrible job at doing the work, right? Because humans are not good at data work. And so it hasn't been, it's 50% of the people who still believe AI is going to kill you, and the other 50% realize that it is something that can provide great value to their business, right? I don't have to deal with that. I'm not here for the conversion process, right? I'm here to help the people that don't have the staff or the balance sheet or the knowledge to do it themselves. That's why I have a stack that you can plug this in. You do it within a quarter. Yeah, the only impact, there's no training. The only impact on the underlying customers, we meet with them for a half hour to an hour a week for 3 to 6 weeks. And during that time, if they, on a Zoom call, if we watch them do the process, right, then you can automate that process and it gets better over time, right? And so it'll be at 99% correct. And then you'll run 100 invoices and it'll be 99.9% correct. And then I'll run 1,000 invoices and it'll be in an asymptotes with correctness over time, right? And so it's a very low impact process. You're not moving the client data. You're not changing their existing systems. They're still using their Excel and their HubSpot or whatever it is. And all you're doing is automating the movement. They still have the email coming in. So you're not even changing the input processes. Clients are sending, they're calling and they're faxing and they're emailing and it's coming in through some web portal. And none of that needs to change, right? The agent can orchestrate that data movement, the data quality checks. And then the other thing that the agents do, the agents provide the social, technical, and security guardrails that you need to operate AI in your enterprise, right? It makes it correct, makes it private, and makes it accurate, makes it traceable, right? And you don't get that going to an LLM, right? And so this is the enterprise version of AI is what you're seeing, the evolution of these systems.
Right. From a leadership perspective, what trends are you watching in U.S. technology or business operations that could shape iClerk's future?
You have, organic growth, and then you have non-organic growth in industry parlance, right? But what you're seeing is a lot of private equity firms are rolling up traditional services firms, so compliance firms, accounting firms. I give you an example in civil engineering is, these phase 2 environmental reporting firms. There's hundreds or thousands of them. And so as you roll them up and deploy technology like this that can automate, it can have a direct impact on the operational cost of running that business, right? You can multiply the margin. And so you're going to see a lot more of that. You see that roll up of these service sectors and then the application of these agentic operating environments to those. And so that will have a profound effect, right? Is if you plugged a company like iClerk into a $100 billion a year oil company, it can affect all of their HR processes and their sales processes and their engineering processes and their accounting processes. It affects all parts of the organization, right? And so these companies are not wired to build it themselves, right? You can't start hiring AI people and expect to build an AI operating system or environment in Conoco or any of these industrial type of companies cross sector. And so that's what you'll see is the new and the old come together to create a new set of business processes that that we've only dreamed about before. It's 90% automation, cost reduction, accuracy improvement. It facilitates compliance. It's not centralized data, so you have better risk control. It's just, it's too good to be true, and that's why people need to see it, right?
Right. And you took the words right out of my mouth with too good to be true. Sometimes, and it's not perfect yet, right? As leading your company, what is the biggest issue you're having at this moment to help you get to this next level? What issues are you having as a company yourself?
Technology's fast. People are slow, right? I originally did neural networks. I did semantic image recognition using neural networks on digital imaging at Kodak in 1988. And so that was like 40 years ago. Right? Yeah. And so it's easy to connect the dots looking back, right? And so over that 40-year career that I've had, I can see all the architectural influences that allowed me to build iClerk, right? I can directly map all of my experiences to that. But going forward, you can't see the future, and humans suck at exponentials. So where do we go from here? I have as good a clue as you. It's doubling. The inference efficiency is doubling now over Moore's law. So that's another 1,000x by 2030. How do you manage into that?
So where do you see iClerk in the next 6 months to a year?
Well, we have too much opportunity, right? And so that's really a function of partners. We run that I've been waiting 40 years for this opportunity, and the opportunity is upon us.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, my friend. Finally, what advice would you give to other founders trying to balance technology, people, and purpose in today's rapidly changing world?
Yeah, the fundamentals have really... I read an article this week about there's two types of people. One that when they hear the word unpack, think of suitcases, and the other who think of assembly language programming, right? And so when I look back at how studying things like object databases and neural networks and distributed concepts and ensemble processing for weather systems, none of these concepts are new, right? They're decades old. The term AI was coined in 1955. When I was studying in the 80s, it was already 30 years old. And so the fundamentals never change, right? And every 20 years, the same applications can be written. So there's, like everything, there's patterns and waves. And so I think just the core fundamental, the basics of computer science still prevail throughout what we're building today. iClerk is not really an AI system. It is a software engineering platform that gives you things like trust and privacy and traceability. And you could have conceptually built that in 1985 or 1995 or 2005 or 2015 or now. And so there's things that haven't changed. And so you kind of have to see the forest through the trees, right? You really need to focus on not the noise and the flash and what's the hottest model right now. It's more of what are you trying to accomplish and what characteristics do the tools have and how do I engineer this to my most benefit, right?
Yeah.
So,
Tom, so do you have anything you want to promote?
Well, just we learn from ideation with our customers, right? That's the opportunity that we provide, is to help us learn together and solve problems that have never been solved using tools like this, right? It's new for everyone. Not to the ballpark yet, right? And so contact us at iClerk.ai and we'd love to chat with you.
Oh, that was my next question. Where can they reach you at?
Yeah, that'll work. LinkedIn.
All right, Tom, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing how iClerk is transforming the way businesses think about automation, knowledge capture, and AI agents. Your work shows what's possible when technology truly understands the role it's serving, not just the tasks. For everyone listening, if you're as inspired as we are by what iClerk is building, make sure to connect with Tom online and explore how AI agents might streamline your own operations. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this episode with anyone passionate about innovation, leadership, and the future of intelligent automation. I'm Ed Moran, and as always, stay visionary.